of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years. Have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. My name is Adrian Hernandez. I am here today with Ezra Parter, Brennan Vogt, Jackie K, and hopefully managing editor Evan Liu. I'm not sure, haven't checked the Slack in a little bit. Brennan, you are looking handsome. Oh, we just lost him right as I started to commend his handsomeness. Looks like he got a haircut and a shave. My goodness. But thank you folks so very much for joining the Mile High Hockey Lab. You can please head on over to our website, milehighhockey.com. You'll find all of our written material over there. And of course, give us a follow on your preferred social media platform. We have some tags up above me here at all caps MHH_lab and at Mile High Hockey. And of course, Brendan is pointing out that he has his own social tag right there under his name. If you are watching the broadcast right now, if not, and you are listening to this maybe a day later on Spotify, we appreciate it. Let that be a hint to those of you who are watching live that we do have every single one of our live broadcasts available on Spotify, 1 through 88, which is our 88th episode today. Pretty impressive if I don't say so myself. We're rolling with it. But just a quick little intro on what you can be expecting from us today. We will give you a little recap and reaction to some of the games that have happened to include last night's comeback and overtime victory.
Both games.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get into a little Casey Mittlestadt, some Gabe Landeskog, some injury updates, maybe talk a little bit about Ludwig on waivers, get into the Avs versus Oilers, Stars and Wild. That's to come later on this week. And, of course, we'll finish the show with NHL news and some bold predictions. All right, well, let's just get it going, Ezra. I think I'm going to start with you, and I think I'm going to give you all of Evan's questions again until he gets here. I like running it that way. But let's start with the shutout by the Jets. Unfortunately, that's where I want to start. It did seem like, oh, wait. I think I just heard a bleep. Oh, just in the nick of time. I almost gave your question to Ezra, Evan. Ooh. Look at you. It's you're just
like the snow for that one.
You're just like Arturi Lehkonen last night. You got the goal when it counted. Forget the other 40 minutes before that. You just needed the one right then and there to send it to overtime. But Evan, shut out by the Jets, and then again come back last night against the Rangers. Does that look last night? Is that what it looks like when a goalie steals a game? It's been a while for the Avalanche since we've said that.
Yes, 100%. I mean, you look at the Avalanche are not in that game at all if Blackwood is not there. If that's Georgiev or Annunen, that was there, maybe 2 months ago, the Avs lose this game like 6-2. Like it's just not happening. So very, very impressive from Mackenzie Blackwood. And the fact that the Avalanche have had like 3 crazy games against hockey teams from the state of New York in the last like month and a half.
Yeah.
Has just been crazy in and of itself. So it's just a roller coaster of events. I'm happy for Mackenzie Blackwood. That contract is already looking great. Just not even a year in,
Right.
So I'm looking forward to the next 5 years of that, and we're gonna hope for the best. But I mean, the Avs need to help them in front of them, right? I mean, there was not much of that at all last night, and neither against Winnipeg either. So still got some work to do for sure, but this is, at least in net, it's a good step. It's a good direction step.
I agree with that. And I think it's important that the Avalanche can get victories in that form again, because as you see, the power play doesn't work right now. And that was a large part of Colorado's early success in October, despite having, a lot of guys on the mend. In that time, we saw a lot of Ross Colton, who was just pouring it in on the power play unit. It really does feel like that first power play unit in particular, Jackie, has hit the skids. Is it really as simple as just not having Nichushkin? Is he the straw that stirs the drink to that extent? I mean, I don't know.
I'd say no, because the guy up front always changes. It's not 100% Nuke all the time. The power play, we know, is set up to do one of three things. McKinnon hitting the one-timer, Rantanen hitting the one-timer, and then basically like plan B is just Kale shooting it in. So it's nice when they get net front goals, but that's not really what it's designed to do. It's designed for those three to score. So as much as we talk about they need to mix it up, they need different looks, they need a different strategy, that's not what they do. What the power play does is set up to do one of those three things. So when it doesn't work, they're just not hitting the shots. It happens, it goes dry. But the only way the power play works is when those three are shooting above expected.
Gotcha.
And it will again. We know this happens. Every year we complain about the power play. We talk about what they should do differently. They don't. Bednar just wants them to have more of a shot mentality, bear down, etc. And then it'll start working again. But it's never going to be like a real dangerous weapon. It's dangerous because of the three elite talents that are shooting on it.
Right.
And like I said, they'll get theirs eventually, but like we've had the same conversation like 5 times.
I was just about to say that.
5 years.
Yeah.
So,
we've had it over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, yes, Nichushkin makes the whole team better, but I think his impact is far greater 5-on-5 than him scoring at the net front. Like he gets hot doing it, but like Lehkonen has done it a lot too, and it's sort of. I remember last year when it went dry about this time of year, and the only person that scored on it was Lehkonen at the net front. So it's just the same story. But no, I don't really think Nuke coming back is going to change it. It's just going to change when those three hit their shots. That's really as simple as it is.
Well, AJ said it best, I think, last night on X when he said he was too tired to make a joke about them turning down a power play. And that's really how the game felt. Like I was having a tough time keeping my eyes open in that third period until Lehkonen scores. And so, Ezra, that kind of brings me back to the loss against Winnipeg and even to the loss against Chicago. Sometimes it feels like this Avalanche team is either their core is either in hibernation for part of the game or kind of like saving their, I guess, energy for the later periods of the game when they know they're going to have to make up goals. Are we seeing that in a combination with the last lackluster depth kind of coming to the surface now? Because I mean, like the Avs look better against Mini, but then just throw another dud against the Jets. What do you see there?
Well, I wrote about this a little bit on Friday in my column. I thought that the games against Minnesota and Chicago were the same, just the pucks went in against Minnesota. They were both played really, really well. And I was frustrated with the response to that Chicago game because like everybody was mad at the Avs for something that it just happens sometimes, right? They played very well. They didn't get goals. I said in the end of that column, save your anger for when it matters. And right now is when you should be mad because the Winnipeg game and the New York game were the complete opposite of those other two games. They played terribly. They were so bad. It's so frustrating because what's bad about the game is that they control play, but they don't do anything dangerous. And they are way too talented. They have way too many dangerous players for that to keep happening. It seems like with the injuries and with the depth being a little less dangerous because there's not a lot of dangerous depth players just in general, not on the Avs, but in general, that's not a thing really. it seems like because of that, the top end of the Avs roster is being forced to play more of a possession game, focus on defense, and not get in at their most aggressive that they can be. And that's hard to watch because we love watching them play the aggressive up-tempo style that we've come to expect, but they just can't do it right now with such a limited lineup. And that's frustrating. To combine that with an ineffective power play that's not being aggressive either, and what seems like a little bit of floaty play from guys in these last two games, specifically support guys like second line guys like my boy Casey
Mittlestadt. We'll get into that
about later, I know, but it seems like the top end guys are maybe getting a little bit frustrated in the same way they were earlier in the season. It seemed like their frustrations were coming from, just the constant barrage of injuries and then the goaltending being terrible. Now it seems like their play is just a little bit like, I don't know. It's like they know that they have to do everything and they just can't do it night in and night out. They did last week, but this week, no.
Well, go ahead, Jackie.
I was going to say, I didn't like that Chicago game. Like, I understand Mrazek played well, but that game was not good. And Minnesota, I mean, we talk about the Avs being injured because they're missing like two decent players. Minnesota basically is missing the equivalent of McKinnon, Makar, and Taze. So if you would think what the performance would look like in that,
but I understand you.
Yes. In instance. I mean, they're ahead of us in the standings, so we can't diminish the important players on their team.
Sure.
So, I mean, good for the Avs for taking advantage of a wounded opponent and somebody that was, in a tough circumstance. But I think that's also part of why that game looked so amazing. Is because they literally had no defense in that game. Like, literally.
Well, I think it's I think Bednar put it really well this morning when he talked to Altitude. And I literally just left the tweet that I had pulled up. But basically he said when you're short guys, and then you to kind of add to what Ezra's saying, when you have your main guys playing roles where they're like defensively focused and not kind of keying on the explosive side of their game quite as much until when it really, really counts, you start to stretch those skill guys late in the games, and you start to really stress them. And sometimes throughout the game, because they're just playing so much, because the bench gets shorter and shorter in a game where Bednar consistently and continually critiques who's playing and how they're playing and kind of goes on minutes based on that. We see the top four players in the Avalanche playing a ton, especially in situations like last night.
And that's how it started in Chicago. The start of a 3-4, you burn them out, and then this is what happens.
Yes.
They can't be at 100% all the time. It's almost like they need something to go right for them to like turn on the gas. But they're not going to do it from the start.
Okay. And overall speaking, I think this is, I guess, more of an overall look, I guess you could say, about that most recent road trip. That was a big road trip.
Yeah.
You got 3 Central Division teams. Of course, Chicago's just kind of out of it already, but you have the other two who are very much in the running, right? And those are guys that the Avalanche are chasing.
Right.
And sure, you beat Minnesota. Great. You lost to Chicago. And you also dropped that game against Winnipeg. Connor Hellebuck has now shut out the Avalanche for like 200 minutes or something like that in his last few games. Like, they only beat the Jets last time because Eric Comrie played on New Year's Eve.
I mean,
and that
good
was
for him. Too bad. The only place he can find real revenge would be in the postseason, but good for him.
The overall point is that road trip is pretty disappointing.
No doubt.
All things considered. But it's a good rebound win that they had last night. It was almost not that.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
It
was almost salt on the wound, and we were having a completely different discussion this morning. Maybe not completely. As Ezra put it in his article, don't overreact. Is that how what did you title it? Don't overreact.
Yeah, don't overreact. Yeah.
Good job. Good. That's good advice to all Avalanche fans. Brennan, I do want to mention 2 things. One, you look absolutely handsome right now. Look at that flow. The beard is off. My goodness.
Well, I gotta leave for a game in like 40 minutes. So,
well, good for whoever will see you when you get there. But I do want to get an update.
Hockey players.
Yeah. Well, then you'll be a sight for sore eyes. But I want to get kind of your reaction to Eagles Fight Cancer Night. You kind of signed off on our last episode with a little preview of that. And then I want you to talk about the Eagles who had a little comeback OT victory of their own, correct, last night?
Well, Jackie needs to take that over because that was her first credentialed game. But
very nice.
The Calgary was swept over the weekend for the hockey. Well, they made it more like a weekend thing for the Hockey Fights Cancer Night thing. So the Eagles ended up sweeping the first place team in the Pacific, who led them by, I think, 12 points going into the weekend.
Nice.
And won the second game where like most of the festivities and all that fun stuff were 7-2.
Okay.
So it wasn't just like hey, we're gonna squeak this out. It was a beat
drubbing.
Yeah. Yeah, but Calgary had ended up calling up quite a few players because Zari was called up or got hurt. Or Kearns was called up and he ended up scoring his first point. But
I saw my boy Peltier did well for Calgary the other day.
Well, Jackie, tell us about your time there last night, and what did you see that maybe Avs fans could be excited about?
No, it was cool. I've been to Eagles games before, but as a fan, so it was cool to do the press box experience. And we talked to Ivan after the game, so I was happy for that because obviously I would like to see him get back up with the Avs. I did feel a little bit more encouraged after going down there and hearing what he and Schneekloth had to say, that I do think he'll be up pretty soon. So
nice.
I thought he played well. He didn't. You can just always tell guys that have spent time in the NHL just that they play with so much more structure. And that's another reason why I'm always like, these guys need real opportunity, because you just see it when they come back, how much of a difference it makes. So the Eagles, they scored early and then just kind of like sat on it. And then the third period, they got in a little penalty trouble, gave up a couple on the power play. But then they tied it with like less than 2 minutes left on their own power play. Or no, it was with the extra attacker.
Nice.
And then they also won in overtime. Magna scored.
Yeah, he had 2 breakaways.
The stars aligned.
It was like exact same time.
That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. Well, that's fun. I'm happy you guys got to talk to Ivan. I'm interested to see what kind of content comes out of that. I'm very excited, in fact, because I'm with you there. I think Ivan has done quite a bit to prove himself as an NHLer, especially this season with the doubt up the middle in terms of depth. I feel like he's the best option right now.
He really should come back and stay. Yeah. But the other person I was impressed with was Prishapov. I hadn't seen him since his last call up, and you could see that it mattered to him as well. Like, he's not as polished as Ivan for sure. Like, he still has things to work on. Probably needs another good summer of training, but you can just see what he does well. And they used him in a pretty significant role, which I was glad to see, because sometimes you don't know. Like, people assume, he was in the NHL, he gets sent down, he's going to be top line, PP1, he's playing 20 minutes a night, and that is absolutely not reality. So it was good to see. He was like on the second line with Magna. He got an assist last night on a good cycle play, good play on the wall. He plays smart, physical, knows where the puck's going to be. And they used him on the penalty kill, which because they do not use young players on the penalty kill, especially like him. Like, usually it's like, Martin Kaut, who's been here for 3 years, now he's on the penalty kill. So to have like a 20-year-old on the penalty kill is different for them. And so that was one thing that we asked Schneekloth about, was Prishapov on the penalty kill. So he said that's part of the development plan for him.
Great.
So
beautiful. I mean, that to me, those are the sort of commitments. Like, if you say, this is our approach with you, this is what we want to turn you into, that feels like a commitment.
Yeah, and it's new for them, but we'll see. They'll have to see it through. I would really like to see another call up or 2 this year for him.
Both of those,
Sidebar, I was not expecting to hear Martin Kaut's name in our
I can go there. I
We always
can.
sneak them in. We always sneak those cult classic Avs names into our shows. So good catch there, Evan. Evan, I'm going to give you this question, and folks, please head on over to Apple and Spotify pods if you're enjoying this broadcast. We have every single one of them available there. But I'm going to send you this question, Evan, because I feel like you're the only one who won't hang up on me for asking it again. But we saw Landeskog skating again on a video with the team, a lot more with the team as of late. And I got to tell you, he looked better than I've ever seen him in a very, very long time. I'm curious if you agree with that statement, and what's your optimism that he plays before the deadline, scale of 1 to 10?
I do agree with your sentiment that Landy does look better. It's nice to see him more involved now with the team than he has been in the last, 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the optimism, I mean, if we're saying 10, I'm the most optimistic. I'm saying like a 2. Like he's still got a long ways to go, and even before then, you have to think too about the constraints that come with that, with the cap, like fitting everybody in. And we still haven't seen
the
him.
waivers.
Yeah.
But and that's the thing too, is that I know we were joking about it earlier, but like John Ludwig was on waivers today, sent down. Oh my gosh, does it mean something? No. Ludwig's like $1 million contract does not fit in.
Yeah.
Landy's
partial. It'd be partial too.
I mean, in terms of a contract, it does, but yeah, you're right.
I mean,
correct.
Yeah. So I think really the thing is that like he just needs time and he needs space to make it work, because it's just not there yet. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen him at his full potential yet. We haven't seen him take the body yet. We haven't seen. I at least have not. Yes, he looks great, but we haven't seen him put a ton of pressure on that right knee. So like,
he did have a nice little one-timey there where you can't really do that if your knee's hurting.
That is.
But don't
true,
we
but
think it was a lot
is,
better in the spring? Like in the spring, it felt like progress. This feels
and that
like
too. Yeah,
like
and
we're
that's the thing,
seeing
too.
40 seconds of morning skate. Like nobody's actually sat down and like watched him.
In
and
those
on top
ones,
of that,
they weren't
too,
with the team though. That's where it was different for me.
Well, the thing is too is that on top of that,
he was with the team. He would join for morning skate, but then he would also kind of definitely not practice, but he was like actually there when they practiced,
and that's
doing
the point
little things.
That's the point I was going to touch on next, was that we haven't seen Landy in practice yet. Like he hasn't, like today, for example. I don't think he was at practice today.
No,
he's only just done morning skate stuff.
No, he refuses to go to family sports, so it's like, we'll see. There's a lot of home games. Like, is he going to be there at every morning skate? Yes, that would be, I guess, worth noting. It's notable.
That I would say is good progress, but I need to see him like consistently every.
Fair. Well, I was going to just make Evan answer the question and then move on, because I don't want to make the rest of us say the same thing we say over and over again when we broach this subject. But I mean, we already did basically, which is until we see him.
That's all I had to say, because I mean, this is just such a. I mean, let's not preach to the choir. It's such a big facet the Avalanche now for the last 3 years, right? Like, oh, what are they going to do with him? Oh, and all the quote unquote fans who are saying he just needs to retire. Like, no, that's just not how this is going to work. No, absolutely not. He is going to give it a shot until maybe Chris McFarland himself says no. Like, it's just not going to happen.
You heard it here first, folks, from Evan Lou. You're not a real fan if you don't want Landeskog to come back.
Boom.
Well, and sidebar that with since we brought up Ludwig being on waivers, but Ludwig being on waivers, Pittsburgh, since we claimed him on waivers, Pittsburgh still does have the first claim on him. And as far as I know,
could he play
even now, months later?
Could he play in goal, since Tristan Jarry's also on waivers today?
Right?
Yeah, right.
As far as I know, Tony Eric has brought this up. He's like,
okay.
And I remember him saying like last week, saying that Wilkes-Barre Scranton is in like desperate need of D-men right now.
Oh, well, there you go.
And this could be that, well, we're putting him on waivers and Pittsburgh may pick him up, and then they may throw him down to Wilkes-Barre Scranton. So we'll see.
It's kind of like what happened with Kakkonen, that even though it had been over 30 days if they're the only team to put in a claim, they can put him straight in the AHL. So with you speaking of the need there, they probably will do that.
You know what, guys? I don't want to hear anything about this being an AHL move. I want to hear that it's because 87 is coming or 92 is coming back. And I'm just kidding, but seriously, that's the world that most Avalanche fans live in. So I'm gonna cater to that a little bit because it's just hilarious. Probably not going to happen.
John Ludwig for Sidney Crosby, straight up.
This is more about Middleton.
They're bringing Kadri back. We need our second center.
There you go.
It's because Bednar's fallen in love with Middleton. That's what it's really about, honestly.
I love it.
Baffles me.
On this one. I think because we're talking about Crosby and 2C, it's actually a good transition into Mittlestadt because
that's where I was headed. That's exactly where I was headed. Good job, good boy, Evan.
But before that, Jackie did mention Middleton. Everybody's starting to see what I've been seeing for the last 2 years, and so now they're all seeing the light. But whatever.
Which is what
I don't see it. They're seeing
Bednar's
it,
also not looking at analytics.
He's not looking at analytics. He's looking at fisticuffs. Fisticuffs.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it.
Which fight has happened? I'm waiting.
There's been a couple.
We're gonna give you an X later, and
I know, but I may not even be here by that point, so I don't care.
Good for you. Well, you're right, Evan. That's a really good segue because the Avalanche seem to maybe, unfortunately, still have a problem at 2C. It feels like Casey Mittlestadt, although maybe his body of work isn't quite that large yet, I would argue that we've seen enough potentially to be worried at a minimum that he's not quite what the Avalanche thought he would be, and definitely at the minimum not fitting that role in 2C. Some of the underlying metrics for him are really, really nasty, not fun to look at. Jackie, am I absolutely out of my mind to think that he might get dealt before the deadline?
No, I don't think that's crazy to say. It's a difficult move to make because the money involved and because of what the Avs need back. So it's not something that I would say is like for sure going to happen, but I definitely think it's something they're looking at. Like McFarland, as time goes on, we see kind of the difference of a little bit how he and Sakic are different in how they operate. Like a lot of it is Avs philosophy, same stuff. But McFarland does seem to be quicker on the trigger to move out guys that aren't good fits.
Yep.
And guys that haven't been around a long time that haven't kind of got that loyalty, that rope that we're going to keep you here for a long time regardless. So yeah, it's possible. But I mean, I've been saying this for a long time. I wrote an article about it like 2 weeks ago, saying that this is more than a cold streak. This is more than just why can't he score a goal? This is more than like nobody's helping him out with assists. I just don't think he's a great fit. He doesn't do what the Avs do. It's not that he has no talent or no value. I just think he'd be better in a different system. Like Buffalo plays more of a top 9. Like it's more of a spread out sort of 3 scoring lines, and the Avs don't do that. They always tend to like their third lines, like whatever they think Parker Kelly is, and then they want to have like 2 scoring lines, and he's just not going to anchor that and drive it. And so then that creates a problem. Then that's like, what is he? And so I don't see that changing. Like, he could get on a hot streak again or go on a run, but I think fundamentally, if over like 3 months you can't get the forecheck going, like you're not getting the forecheck going. It's just not what you do. And so they're going to have to reconcile that.
I agree with that. And Ezra, I'm curious your take because you and I were both very pro Casey Mittlestadt when the deal happened, and I still see what the Avs saw in terms of his potential, but I think as time has worn on, I am aware of the fact that what Jackie's pointing to, which is the fit part of this. I'm also kind of like, what can be done about this situation to where you'll feel good about having traded Bowen Byram for him too?
Yeah, I mean, he was my target when all the Byram talk was happening. He was exactly who I wanted. They went and did it. I felt like a brilliant genius hockey mind for getting that one right. And it's looking like my favorite players often don't pan out. It seems like it's him, it's Malinsky. It's basically if I get fully on someone's bandwagon, watch out. But I think he, I think he still the fit thing that we've just discussed I think makes a lot of sense. I think it's funny because it feels like the things he does well, he's overthinking right now because he's worried about the things he doesn't do well. And that makes sense because the fit is not quite perfect. So he has to adjust his game. But what frustrates me more than, if he's not going to be the forechecker, that's fine generally because like typically he'll be paired with somebody who is, but right now with roster limitations, that's been hard to manufacture. And then, his defensive side of his game, it looked pretty good for the first like 30 games in an Avs uniform, but lately it's really, really not good. Almost this entire season, but definitely like last year when he came over, he looked like he was going to be able to figure that out. And this year, not so much. But what's really frustrating to me beyond those things, which I felt like were kind of going to happen, but he would be able to play through them, is every time he enters the zone, it looks like he's pulling up, doing the McKinnon thing, pulling up and looking for somebody instead of trying to create a play. And McKinnon manages to knife through guys and make that happen, even if he pulls up and runs into trouble. But Mittlestadt just isn't quite good enough to do that. So he's pulling up, making turnovers. I think in the game last night, there was a lot of hate for a play he made that ended up being a Rangers goal.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That one individually, I'm like, that play isn't actually – that feels like a crazy pass that just didn't work, that he was trying to catch, and it didn't work. But generally, his play along the blue lines is really, really frustrating. So, I mean, I guess –
I would say like one of his best qualities is more that like cerebral player, that playmaker, and the Avs just don't have time for that. I mean, like Mikko's that kind of guy, but I wouldn't even say that that's like one of the best top 3 things Mikko does on this team. Like it's even underutilized in him, or like Girard. I mean, we see it and we're missing it from Girard, but I mean, in a different system, you would see that cerebral playmaking passing quality. And the Avs have zero time for it from anybody that's like, not one of their elite players. It's why guys like, Maltsev haven't worked out, and they had other issues, but I'm saying they have no patience and no time for someone that plays more of that cerebral, deliberate, more of that intelligent passing game. And the Avs just don't play that way. So I think maybe that's what he's trying to do because that's what he's good at. And that makes sense because that's a strength of his, but it's just like, it just doesn't work on this team because then he's not playing with really like-minded. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't have that kind of function at all.
That's a good point because like they even have similar highlights, Mikko and Mittlestadt, like the behind the net backhand no look passes that find a random guy who's wide open in the slot that no one else saw but them, and those are those like cerebral, seeing the play developing in their mind before anyone else does kind of plays. And honestly, that is what had me excited about Casey Mittlestadt. And the thing is with this situation, it'll always be, at least for, I guess, the foreseeable future until another 2C comes in and puts his stamp on the Avalanche, it'll always be that, how does he compare to the stylistics of Nazem Kadri? And the thing with Kadri was he maybe struggled defensively at times, but he always showed up on the score sheet when he needed to. And he was consistent in the sense of being the same kind of character, the same reliable person, within the structure of the Avalanche pretty consistently after like the second or third year of being an Avalanche. So it was kind of to me, what I'm missing there is like, I'm okay if Mittlestadt can't always be there on the forecheck and defensively. I'm honestly okay if we see less of the creativity and more of just the shooting, as long as it starts to show up in terms of productivity. And that just has not happened. And Evan, I'm curious as to what you kind of think of the situation. I know that, us on this program, we don't root against guys. We all want Casey Mittlestadt to get out of this slump and to become the 2C that he was brought in to be. But in your mind, is that viable? And if it's not, are the Avs losing value in terms of a trade every time he goes out on the ice and doesn't perform?
It's a really good question because I was going to chime in, at least on the Kadri part, that he had the help around him, right? He had the Burakovskis and the Nichushkins that were there on the second line, sometimes the Landeskog, something like that. And that really, really helped him, right? And I remember, at least in Mittelstadt's first games, he had Lehkonen alongside him, and then he had Nichushkin on the wing too. Him and Lehkonen were unstoppable against the Jets. My God, they were so good. They're together now. They don't have Nichushkin, and that's not really working either. So,
I mean, he's had Mikko enough this year that you can't really say it's line mate.
Yeah,
but I would also say that Kadri, he definitely, when he was playing well, he was consistent, but he needed help. Like, remember, he had like 30 some points the year before. So I know it's unfair to think like Mittelstadt needs to be like Stanley Cup version Kadri. That's not going to happen. But
no, that's not what I'm saying. I think
that's what the fans think, that if we're criticizing Mittelstadt, that we just expect him to be Kadri, that we're expecting him to be 80 some point Nazem Kadri, and that's not true either. I think what Bednar also wants is like Comfer, like the version of, how can you have a 2C that you don't trust a penalty kill, that you don't trust to take D zone faceoffs, that you don't trust to play in the D zone? Like, at this point, I think they'd rather even just have like Comfer back than what they're getting. So I think they want something in between. They want someone that's a little bit more productive than Comfer was, but somebody that could play all those roles, because that's what you have a 2C for, at least on this team. On other teams, it might look a little different, but that's why Comfer was basically the 2C that the year that Kadri was gone, is because you're looking for that sort of like mix of player.
I wonder
in terms to.
Oh, go ahead, Evan.
Sorry, I just want to wrap up Ado's question.
Yeah, go ahead, Evan.
I also know it's loud in this building that I'm at.
No, you're good.
Get D-Max, but
you're good.
I guess in terms of losing trade value, sure, Buffalo's not doing that great, but Bo Byron is. So I guess the longer it goes on, you could argue that. But I mean, I guess if we're going to tie this whole thing in a bow, I guess is a better way to say this.
It might be a knot.
It could be a knot for all we know. But if the Avalanche feel confident enough that by the time the trade deadline comes around and they say, "Oh, we think Landeskog might be back," then maybe, and this is a very, very big maybe you could slot Landy in at 2C, at least for the time being, and get something back from Mittelstadt. But
I think Ezra agrees with me. Landy at center is not a good Landy. We all know that.
Yeah,
he can take face off, but to start.
And his return, that would be asking a lot.
No, that's what I would.
Okay, yeah. So first off,
that's why I say if.
Yeah. Well,
Big if, right?
To first off, like ask someone who hasn't played in 3 years to go jump in and play. What's Casey playing? Like 14 minutes, 15 minutes. Yeah. So to jump in and drop in and play that many minutes, and then play a 200-foot game. That's asking a lot.
Here's the thing that I think so many people miss about the whole big picture of the Landeskog situation. You say that, and it might be true, but this is also something that people would say and could be true, but isn't. Most people retire with the injury he sustained.
Oh, I get it.
He's not a normal guy. He's not the kind of guy who steps into the room and goes, "Okay, give me the smallest role you can because I really need to slow my roll on my way back into this."
Well, I'm just saying, my wife can tell you he's not.
Even if he wants it, it's not. I mean, he never played center even when they won the cup.
Sure.
They never played center back then.
I just mean in terms of like him shooting down a role or like not playing a role because of. I mean,
he'd do anything that was asked
exactly.
of him. Yeah. But should they ask him to do that? No.
Yeah, he would occasionally play a shift at center, but he would take face-offs, and that's part of the reason why the Avs face-off percentage is suffering, is because Landy's not on the dot. To ask him, well, it's always suffered, but Landy was one of their better face-off takers. Sure. But to have someone come in after knee surgery, after 3 years, and then play a 200-foot game, that's just no.
I just put it this way: he's the Avalanche's Katniss Everdeen, bro. He will volunteers tribute. Like, you don't need to ask him to do something. He'll be like,
or wait, no, like this. Yeah.
yeah, there you go. And I know I'm
What a
getting ahead of
comparison,
myself,
by
but
the way.
I laugh at kind of like, I do laugh a lot when I'm on X and I see people talking about like, oh, well, when Landy comes back, like he's going to be a shell of himself. And that may be true physically, but in terms of the mentality, in terms of the effort and the want to, that's just something that won't change, period. And so I think that'll
can do that. That is
but
the big question.
the want to sometimes turns into the can do, which is kind of his whole thing.
I hope so. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm optimistic about Landeskog being able to contribute in his return. I'm not as optimistic about him being able to contribute in the top 6, but I want to go back to Casey real quick, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I wonder if we reframe thinking of Casey Mittlestadt as a Kadri replacement to being a Burakovsky replacement, if we feel better about it. Because
I would, actually.
They are very similar players, getting very similar money.
Streaky,
being asked to do very different things in terms of what Burakovsky was and what Mittelstadt is now. Obviously, the better result of a Byram trade is a full-on 2C than it is a Burakovsky type winger. But if we think about who we have right now, Mittelstadt, this version of Mittelstadt, and we think about him in terms of being a replacement for Burakovsky's role, and maybe Ross Colton plays more of the Comfort Kadri role, just in terms of roster construction, does that not feel better? Does that not feel like something that we don't have to be as apocalyptic about?
I think so. And that's funny that you mentioned that, because when the trade first went down and we had, my initial reaction was like, hell yeah. Then I talked to Jackie. Jackie brought me down to earth a little bit, and I did kind of look at the situation a little more in depth, and I noticed those differences between a guy like Comfer and Mittelstadt. And I was like, is this our set and forget 2C? And AJ was like, on X, he said, who's your other option? And I said, Ross Colton. And I feel that way now, especially when you put it that way, Ezra. It's really a smart way to put it, because Ross Colton is a lot like JT Comfer in terms of those like intangibles and tangibles, like just a skater, strong on the forecheck. He really did take on, I wish he was better on the dot, kind of things like that. But you're right in terms of like play style. I totally agree with you. But I do think the Avs need, I think he's more towards Comfer. And to Jackie's point, he's not in the middle of Comfer and Kadri enough to satiate the 2C appetite, which honestly, guys, for most of the layman fans like me, it's just about putting the puck in the net when the top 3 guys can't score. It really is. It's being that supplemental scoring on nights when the big 3 are kind of having an off night. And we've gotten that here and there from mixed and matched faces. One of the people I think will get it more from as he gets healthy is Drew In, but who knows if he'll ever get fully healthy. We heard that his injury is quote unquote nagging and probably will nag him for a long time. So it's just like, I think that's where fans get frustrated. Brandon, I want you to wrap us up on the Landy and Mitts talk. And we already touched on waivers, so let's on the Ludwig waiver thing. So let's preview the Avs and Oilers when you're done with that.
Well, I mean, if Landy's going to come back, I don't know if they're going to get rid of Mittelstadt. Yeah. I mean, I just want to put that out there. But if he continues to struggle the way he's struggled, who knows? Yeah. But like we've said, McFarland's been quick to pull the trigger and get rid of people. Gosh, now I'm blanking on names.
Georgiev. Like Tatar, Ryan Johansson.
Yeah, Tatar, Georgiev, and it was a long night. Yeah. Ask Jackie. But so yeah, it honestly, I think it can go either way, but it's going to take more than getting rid of Mittelstadt in order to clear up that cap space. I mean, with Ludwig, if you get rid of him, that's only $1 million. If you get rid of Mittelstadt for like just prospects and draft picks, then that's only 5.5. So there's only 6.5. Yeah. That's assuming you take him and then he plays next year without injury.
Right.
you still have $500,000 that you got to make up.
Well, is that true though? Because isn't it prorated? So isn't part
Well,
of this
no,
contract
I'm just
paid for?
assuming that, like, I'm looking forward to next
Gotcha.
year.
Okay.
Cross my fingers.
Yeah,
But
I got you. Okay.
Because you have to make room for next year if you want him to play next year. But I'm all for Landy coming back. Always have been. Always been a proponent of Landy coming back. He's always been the captain for me. But whatever.
We'll see. Well, let's talk a little bit about that Oilers game that's coming up tomorrow night. Star-studded, of course. We got the McDavid versus McKinnon, Draisaitl, Rantanen, and Makar. Plenty of names. Obviously, Avs need all the points they can get in a pretty crazy tight race in the Central. But along with the Oilers, the Avs will play the Stars and the Wild between now and our next show. Brandon, I'm curious, are you more up for the Oilers, or are you more excited and kind of more determined for the Avalanche in terms of stealing some 4-point swing games against the Stars and the Wild?
I would definitely take 4-point swing games against the Stars and the Wild, of course, because then if we take those 4-point swing games, then that gets us out of the wild card and into a better position in the Central. So
yeah.
Right now we are only 2 points out of the third place spot behind the Stars and 3 points behind the Wild.
Right.
And are the Wild really that great?
They're hurt.
Yeah, I mean,
not now anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
At least they're not now because of so.
Yeah. And I mean, their top line's really good, but beyond that, who?
Yeah. Fair. And honestly, like, the Avs need to stop playing down to that. Like when you get the opportunity to kick a team when they're down, you do it. And I think like the Avs should have done that more sure-handedly last night against the Rangers, and they got lucky that Blackwood bailed them out and gave him the ability to do so still late in the game. Because as Evan mentioned in the build-up, that game could have been a lot more lopsided in favor of the Rangers than it ended up being. And so the Rangers kind of left the door open, but it was Mackenzie Blackwood's foot kind of stuck between the door and the opening that really left the door open for the Avalanche. Jackie, I'm curious as to how you feel about this question. And Evan, I'm going to get your kind of same take on it after. But for the players themselves, I think 2 points are 2 points. But when you play the Oilers on national television, is it important for McKinnon, Makar, and I guess maybe Mackenzie Blackwood to shine in terms of campaigning for season-long awards?
I'm sure they won't see it that way, but yeah, you can't deny that it matters. It is a little early, I think, to really cement, unless one of them has like a signature performance or something, but it's a little early for that to push it either way. I mean, people would say Makar needs points if he really wants to win the Norris. Like, it's been too long that he hasn't started piling up points. I mean, if we're talking about winning the Norris, he needs points. He needs the power play to run, and he needs to start piling up. Because I think even Werenski is passing him, which is also not good. So for him, that is just production. And we know McKinnon's still in the lead. I also think that's going to come down to points. I know the media really wants it to give it to Kaprizov, but he's missed a lot of time. So he's got to get back up himself into the points race. But I don't know. Is the Oilers game the most important? I would say no, just because the division games are more important.
Yeah, totally.
As far as like a star power thing, I think like Bednar kind of said this about the Rangers too. Like, it's fun for the fans to see stars versus stars, but as far as the team, no, I don't think you can get caught up in that. It's way too early. They're still fourth in the division. Like, you just need points, and so that's just really what the focus should be.
Totally. The only thing I wonder about, maybe not with like the stars and the matchup as it is, but like I think these guys are starting to get a little more open, maybe in this season, than they ever have been with each other as adversaries. Specifically, a guy like McDavid and McKinnon, who are likely to be on the same line with each other at the Four Nations tournament. I feel like we're seeing a lot more of like a buddy. I mean, we got Connor McDavid tweeting that he wants to see a one-timer from, I think it was Austin Matthews, and celebrating a one-timer goal from Austin Matthews, which to me is that exact thing kind of being put on display, which is we're seeing more of an alliance nationally this season than we ever have than I think like even internally within NHL teams. So I think they are maybe a little more fun for the players themselves this year. But overall, I think you're probably right about that. Like, it's our job to kind of hype that up and talk about it. But Evan, I'm curious how you feel about the awards campaign. Is it too early? I mean, we get odds already, and I think McKinnon and Makar are both odds-on favorites for their respective awards. But what about Mackenzie Blackwood, who has been the best goalie in the league since joining the Avalanche?
I was surprised that Jackie said yes, because I definitely thought she would have said no. It's not matter, at least right now anyway.
To what? I mean, hype always matters. Hype always matters.
I guess, yeah. I guess I look at it more, maybe not for Mackenzie Blackwood, but for all the players that you just mentioned, your Makars, your McKinnons, they just got to play better. Because, I mean, Jared Bednar said it after the Rangers game. Players said it after the game last night. That was an unacceptable performance. That's what they said, and that they got away once, right? I think, at least right now, you probably want, get yourself some points, of course, but you also want to play good along the way, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that they haven't really had, I guess, the last few games. And if you do it against the Edmonton Oilers on national TV, that's going to look really good. And that'll work itself into the awards and all that sort of stuff. And in terms of Blackwood, I mean, just keep doing what you're doing, man.
Maybe
he still hasn't given up more than 2 goals in the teams that he's played as an AF. So, yes, please give us more of that. Literally, you just need a goal from McKinnon, McCarr, and then you're bound.
Well,
that is at least right now, and that's a great feeling for sure.
Yeah, the crazy part is we talked about the nutso stat too, where before he was here, the Avs had won every game but one when they had allowed 2 or less goals. So that means that bodes well if you combine those two crazy facts. But Ezra, like last week, you kind of weren't here for this part, but I'll give you a little kind of recap on what happened. I explained to Brendan that I'm totally in love with Mackenzie Blackwood, and I think it's a match made in heaven. He said, this might be just the honeymoon phase, young man. Calm down. Don't rush in too quick. How do you feel about that?
Bursting your bubble.
No, you know what? Like I said, I always need to be brought down to earth. That's why this show is such a great thing for my psyche. But Ezra, are you with me? Are we dancing in the clouds together, or are you also wary of the honeymoon phase?
I mean, it's definitely a honeymoon phase. That's factual, right? But at the same time, when the honeymoon is this sweet, like the rest of it's going to be pretty good too, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's okay to be optimistic. I think it's okay to be excited, and I think as much as Brennan's absolutely right on that, hell yeah, let's dance in the clouds. He's been so good.
Baby. Yes, let's go. I love it, baby. Brendan, it's been a couple of games, a couple of really pretty good performances. Didn't really get his way against the Jets, but other than that, I think he's played well. Obviously, no more than 2 goals. Are you in the clouds with us, or are you still?
Well, yeah, of course I am. It's just, I'm a bitter 40-year-old man.
Well,
for
way
me,
to put
I
it
don't
honestly.
think he's gonna just randomly be bad more than any goalie, because every goalie has a random bad year or something. I don't think it's fake and he's just gonna start to be terrible all of a sudden. But to understand the importance and how much of a difference he makes, I have to see a losing streak or an injury plague. And this is not injury plague. I'm talking about McKinnon, Makar, Mikko not in the lineup, true injury crisis.
Gotcha.
And see how much of a difference does he make? How much does he pull them out? How many games does he steal? Things like that. You can't just say over 2 weeks, okay, well, he's played well. Absolutely. It's great that he hasn't given up more than 2 goals.
Yes.
All that's amazing. But to say, this is 5 years, and this doesn't even count this year. 5 years after this year is a long time.
You called it. It's a marriage, baby, and this is truly a honeymoon. That's exactly what's happening.
So like I said, I think he's going to be good. Absolutely. But to the caliber of championship, Vezina, most important player on the team, we just don't have that answer yet.
Well, welcome
also,
to.
I don't have that expectation. This is so far above what I expected so far that I'm
good for you.
If it's this good when it's great, then when it's normal, I think I'm
They're
going to be pretty
also
happy.
healthy, and I don't want to hear
Yeah.
that they're not healthy. They're basically healthy. So this is
well-
kind of
I
as
don't agree
good
with
as
you
the
at all.
roster
Do you want to
gets.
see my injury list?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Oh,
Six
all the
guys
guys
on
that
there.
aren't going to be playing on the team. Everyone was like, "Oh, Ivan, well, he's gone. Shillington's not playing when he gets back." So
Well, Ivan's
I
healthy.
haven't done a condition
technically.
list then, basically.
yeah,
Gerard,
we hope.
Gerard,
We hope.
Nichushkin, Druin, I guess came
Druin's
back.
playing.
Druin's playing hurt.
Gerard and
counts.
Nichushkin are pretty important.
Yes,
but
they are. Absolutely.
let's
Those
see.
two are important. But
Yeah.
for the Avs to only be missing 2 real players that's kind of like on the higher end of the roster for them.
Sure. Well,
so right
Man,
now
the goalposts move fast around here. This is wild.
well, so right now it's Wood, Chillington, Nichushkin, Gerard,
People were
Landy.
counting Ludwig, and then they just waved him.
Yeah.
Who the hell was counting
Well,
Ludwig?
those 4 and 5 you just listed matter to me. I agree with that.
And then technically at Landy and Pullman. And then down with the Eagles, you have Barron, Steinberg, and Stevens.
Well, I mean, Ludwig is a perfect example. Like, yes, he may not be an NHL roster player all the time, but his injury means that Keaton Middleton is in the lineup.
He wasn't injured.
Yeah.
He wasn't
he
injured.
wasn't ever injured.
Okay,
No, he wasn't injured.
Yeah.
He went down because they weren't playing him. He was riding the pine.
My point is just like whether the guys who are hurt are the most important players, their being absent means that other players are playing in the wrong place in the lineup.
Well, yes,
So
every
that's a big
injury
deal.
matters, but when is this team going to play 100% healthy? It's never going to happen.
Sure.
Sure,
Well,
but he's not
welcome
even-
to the lifestyle lounge of the Mile High Hockey Lab, where we're talking about managing expectations in relationships. Mackenzie Blackwood is showing us the highlight reel currently, but we need to
I got
manage
my
our
Cavatier.
expectations. Ah, yes, manage those expectations and
All right,
be
the longer this
happy.
goes on, I'm just going to go jump in the pool.
I'm gonna put you to sleep if you get in the pool. That's dangerous. But I think what Jackie's keying on is true. I do think there's tinges of a little doomsdayness in it. Like when do we really want the Avs to play without those guys ever? And if they are we really going to be like, oh, Mackenzie Blackwood's letting in 4 a night, let him go? Well, no, probably not. If Rantanen and McKinnon and those guys aren't in the lineup, I think
Well, no, he doesn't have to be a complete savior. I'm just saying that's when you'll know.
Yeah. Well, I think
you'll
you're
know
right.
more
Yeah.
than 1 month of
Sure,
basically perfect play from him.
When the first fight happens, as Brennan put it, right?
Yeah.
When you don't put the toilet seat back down, just that one time too many, and it's on like Donkey Kong. That's when we'll find out if Mackenzie Blackwood is what we really hope he is. I'm with Ezra though. Like if the honeymoon phase looks like this, the marriage is probably going to be pretty nice. Something that I can at least wake up and look forward to every day. Kind of like in my own marriage. Shout out, wifey. So let's move on to our final segment, which is bold predictions. I boldly predict that my wife is not watching and not here to take in that beautiful compliment I just sent her. But I also had a bold prediction last week. And guess what, y'all? I think I got it right. Unfortunately, I got it right, but the Avs lost to the Chicago Blackhawks. I said that they would allow less than 22 shots on goal. I think it was 20. And Ezra, you said that Trent Miner would have a pretty Trent Miner day and make 18 saves. He made 17 saves.
Oh.
You were so close, man. He needed one more save and you would have got it. Brennan, you mentioned that there would be a Matt Rempe fight with Keaton Middleton. We're still waiting.
Yeah,
Still
so
waiting. Wondering what Keaton Middleton looks like without his gloves on. Wouldn't know.
We saw it once, right?
Yeah, I think we did.
It was against Anaheim, I believe.
Yeah. Wonder what the backstory is on that.
I'm surprised it's not more than that.
Yeah. Evan, I don't think we saw a defender on a forward line, but we did see 11-7, which I mean is 61, half a dozen of the other.
I had said 11-7, but one of the
yeah, you did. So you
didn't
you still got the X. And Jackie, you had 2 empty net goals for Mikko between our last show and now, and I don't think that happened either. So that means it's time for a new round of bold predictions. I will play that track, give the four of you time to think of yours, and we will lay them on the line.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I call that bold talk.
All right. So the other thing I forgot to mention too is for Jackie, your season-long Ludwig playing forward by the end of the season. If he gets claimed, I'm going to have to give you a season-long buzzer on that one, unfortunately. So we'll double back to that next week. But Ezra, what do you got for me in terms of a bold prediction this week?
Is it a bold prediction to say Jason Poland plays one more game and then goes to the AHL?
No.
I know, I'm kidding.
Another 4 minutes.
Jackie,
I'm gonna say my bold prediction. I think Shillington's back in the lineup this week.
Back in the...
I don't know how bold that is.
That's pretty damn bold.
I would call that bold.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's where this Ludwig thing comes from. I don't know.
I like it. All right, Jackie, what you got for me?
I'm going to make it nice and easy this week. I'm going to say Ivan is back this weekend.
Nice. I think that's bold enough for me. Bold enough. Although, I mean, do you have inside information?
No.
Are you
no.
insider dinging right now? Because I'm just teasing.
No,
Hell, Sneakoff didn't even know. So
I was going to say, if you know, that'd be pretty wild.
I would say I was encouraged by the vibe, but no, nobody
Gotcha.
said anything like that.
Gotcha.
I mean, Bednar's still floating that he has to like earn it or whatever. So, I mean, we'll see.
Don't we all, Bedsy? Evan, what you got for me?
I'm wondering, and maybe I'll ask this one: do we think Scott Wedgwood is going to play this week, or is it just going to be Blackwood?
I think that's bold enough if you want to pick Wedgwood.
I was going to say, yeah, screw it, I'll go with it. I say Wedgwood starts the game because he hasn't been back yet since his injury. He's all good to go now.
Do you want to guess it?
So, Dallas is his former team. So
I was going to say, and he gives up 2 goals or less.
2 goals.
Keep the trend going with like Blackwood.
Love it. I guess I gotta call him the what is it? What do they want to be called? Not the woodshed, because
the lumber yard.
The lumber yard. Yeah.
Isn't the lumber yard where things go to die?
Yeah. Can't we just find something to be upset about in literally any sort of shorthand name we come up with? Like the dejection of the woodshed because of the phrase "take you out to the woodshed." I was just like, okay, whatever. I guess that matters now.
I wonder if Wedgwood plays Edmonton, because you really do think you want Blackwood to play the division games.
Yeah, that's a good point. Be cool to get to come back and be on national TV too, or would it? I think it'd be cool. Brandon,
I mean, he's played well.
Yeah, Brandon, what you got this week?
McDavid 1 point.
Oh,
they usually do hold him. I
think last time we played the Oilers, I did a head-to-head. No, that was the Lightning.
He did pretty well in that one because the Avs didn't play well in that game.
I said McDavid pointless last time.
That's right. Okay, so you're giving in a little bit, but I like.
They usually hold him without a goal. I know the last time I think he got a lot of assists. He usually doesn't score a goal against the Avs.
All right. That just leaves me, and I'm going to boldly predict. I'm actually going to be at the game on Saturday, which is going to be awesome. So I want to circle my bold prediction around that game just so that if it happens, I can send a video of me hooping and hollering. It's a freaking matinee game. So I'm going to say that against the Dallas Stars, the Avs, this is going to be a double whammy. The Avs throw a shutout and there's a hat trick. Now we're getting bold.
Hat trick and a shutout.
Yes.
Hat trick on Otter
and a shutout on Dallas.
All in that game? Not even over the week?
Nope,
just
that game. Just that game. If it happens,
if you get it, then you get like the ultimate ding. You get
exactly.
I
might retire too.
You get the ding of the season if you get that right.
Yeah. Well, in my mind, if you're shutting them out, hopefully you're having a great night offensively. Maybe it's a 2-0 game, and they pull their goalie, and you
however it happens.
And Kiviranta gets a hat trick.
Exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
Keith. How about that? Let's do that. Let's add a third to that. I'm just kidding. Now we're getting into the plus a million here. We're already well into plus 100,000, so let's not push too many zeros on that bold prediction. But folks, if you have any bold predictions, please send them to us on X or your preferred social media platform, or you can chime in right now in the comments. I will be sure to write them down if you put them in, and we will shout you out on the next show and give you your buzzer or your ding, depending on what you earn. And thank you all very much for tuning into the program. There's about 720 of you on this show right now. It means a lot to us that you folks would tune in. I know that there's plenty of Avalanche content out there for you to ingest, and so that the fact that you're choosing us means a lot. So we appreciate you folks, and of course, head on over to the website milehighhockey.com and download and subscribe, all that fun stuff as it pertains to Avalanche content. We really appreciate you. On behalf of Ezra Parter, Brennan Vogt, Jackie K, my name is Adrian Hernandez, and this has been...
You're forgetting our managing editor.
Oh...
I know. I haven't been here in 2 weeks.
I was just about to say, this is what happens when you don't. I assume you left already. What happened?
Blame family and travel issues.
Okay, fine, Evan. Well, didn't you just say Scott Wedgwood returns?
Uh-huh.
Isn't that your bold prediction?
I did.
Yeah.
You just forgot to say goodbye to him.
Oh, on behalf of Evan, Lou only, and the Mile High Hockey Lab, I am not Adrian Hernandez. And go Avalanche.
Thank you for tuning into the Mile High Hockey Lab.